Hi, it's Peter Tanella. Welcome back to Just Vetting, where we go beyond the exam room to talk business, leadership, and long-term success in veterinary medicine. Today I'm joined by Jen Coppens, founder of Coppens Business Strategies. Jen works with veterinary practices across the country, helping them to improve operations, leadership, and financial performance. And she also facilitates peer groups through VMG and VSG. I think what sets Jen apart, and which we're going to hear a lot about today, is her ability to bridge the clinical and business worlds. She doesn't just tell teams what to do or what to change. She helps them understand why it matters and how to make it stick. So Jen, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
So Jen, your path to veterinary consulting, you've spent more than 25 years in business and leadership. Then you shifted over to now veterinary consulting in 2015. What originally drew you into veterinary practice management?
Well, it's a very interesting track because I used to be heavily involved in IT and leadership, and we ended up growing a company up from about 2.5 million to 70 million over about a 15-year period. It was a really good learning experience. I really got to cut my teeth and learn a lot about how to grow businesses, but that was in an IT director position. At the end of that, we sold the company and I moved on. I was looking for a next opportunity, and my wife is a veterinarian. So I had a little bit of downtime. I was interviewing around, you know how that goes. And I asked the owner of the practice she worked in if they would mind if I came in just to shadow their business for a little bit, all free of charge, just because I wanted to see how a different business worked.
Mm-hmm.
And I got in there and it was amazing. They were a smaller company, 2.5 million or so. And it brought me back to the old days, back when I started the business from before, and just I saw the path that they were going to be going over for the next several years. I knew the problems they're going to face as they started to add more levels of leadership, as they hired and grew their teams, as they put processes in place. And I saw just a huge opportunity to help them. And and I got in there, made some recommendations. She started to grow and started doing really well. And then she shared her results with some of her friends. And 6 months later, I had 2 other clients besides her. And I had to open up a business. And then from there, it's just been growing and growing. And I've just found a really cool synergy working with the great people in the veterinary space, being able to bring a business and technology and really a lot of analysis to that too, and helping out with some of the leadership side to an industry that I think I can help them with, that where I don't know anything about the medicine side, but these are doctors that run these practices, so they have that part down. But I can hopefully contribute something on the business and leadership piece.
Right, it's a great story, and it's a little unusual, but then it's not unusual. I had a good friend of mine who recently semi-retired. He was an accountant, and I asked him years and years ago. He'd been in the industry forever, and he just started with almost like, something just like what you were saying. To a friend of a friend, he happened to help out a veterinary clinic, and then one led to two, two led to three, and like, wow, I'm onto something here, and I just really like the change I can make and the people that I'm working with, which I think all of us professionals who service the industry, I know I feel that way, and our team does, and others that I talk with. You get to it, you see you impact change, and you get to enjoy the people that you're working with, and they're really appreciative of what you're doing as well too. Which, as you and I both know, is not the same in all industries.
No, not at all. I definitely think the people are the reason why I'm still here 10 years later. I love working with people in the vet industry.
So give me. You mentioned problem like that first. No, you went that first hospital. And you saw like what problem were you seeing in clinics that you felt wasn't being addressed?
So some of the big things is a lot of times the owners of practices had these visions for where they wanted their practice to go, but they had a really hard time being able to take that vision in their head and actually implement it and get it to stick and realize those goals that they had. So a lot of it was being able to take a vision that was a concept, actually build the processes to make it work, and then be able to train the team, bring them along, and help that adoption process to the point where they could actually be doing a project later. So one of the first projects I did with a practice is the owner wanted to put forward booking in place and be able to book the next appointment for every appointment that they had. but didn't really know how to do it, knew it was possible, didn't know how to. And so we brought the whole team together. We built the process with the team instead of just doing it in a back room and bringing it out to them, and then helped run that. We did a contest to get it going and got that in place. And we doubled their forward booking rate over a month's period just by being able to work with them and implement that in a really systematic way.
Mm.
So I just find opportunities along those lines often where owners know what they want to do. They just don't either know how to do it, or they, even if they know how, they don't know how to get the team on board and actually implement those types of change.
I guess this would follow in terms of like the biggest operational breakdowns you see consistently. Is it just that owners, they have an idea what's wrong, they just don't know how to, they don't know how to make that change?
Yeah, again, these are classically trained medical
Mm-hmm.
professionals. They're experts in their field and they're great at it. And they have varying degrees of business background, so they have a lot of opportunities for someone like me who walks in who is a process person. I've been building processes and leading teams for 20 years. And being able to take that and look at it from an outside perspective and analyze it and say, okay, why is our room flow running like this? We're losing minutes here. What's happening at this point? And actually be able to take it step by step and make it consistent. We have a lot of problems with consistency in practices. Every doctor does it a little different. Every technician does it a little different, and we're getting slightly different results from person to person. So the ability to make a uniform process that we can all buy into and adhere to and be consistent is probably one of the biggest things I do for
Mm-hmm.
practices.
You've been in business almost 10 years now. I guess you're celebrating your 10-year anniversary,
Yeah,
2015.
indeed.
Hey, congratulations!
Yep.
There you go.
Thank you very much. All right.
What I guess have you seen, in terms of these processes and operational issues? What's changed over the last 5 years that you can, is there anything in particular that jumps out at you?
We went through a really interesting period in the vet industry, as I know you're aware, as we got into COVID and everything shifted to curbside. Then we had just huge levels of demand and staff shortages going on.
Right.
And so, coming out of all of that, we had the huge consolidation push as well. And as we kind of have tailed out of that in the last 2 years, a lot of what I've been seeing with practices that's been really important is kind of getting back to a lot of those basics. A lot of the time practices were just trying to survive through a lot of the curbside and the staff shortages and the demand that they had to deal with, and they're coming out of it and trying to get back to those things that made them great. Getting on top of the reminders, getting people who are going dormant back into the clinic this so they can get onto their annual care, doing things like forward booking, all the things that they used to be great at before the pandemic hit. They've lost some of those fundamentals over those years. And now just getting them back to those fundamentals, getting those processes back in place is one of the bigger things I'm seeing over the last probably 2 years period.
Yeah. How about staffing? What do you do in terms of, so you got the outward facing with the clients, right? And then, I think one of the biggest issues we deal with as a team is just staffing. I could probably count on one hand where I'll have clients say, I have no issue with staffing. But I think that's like the big white elephant in the room. And obviously, I know there's some long-term fixes in that pipeline with more schools. Um, but I mean, what are you telling your clients that you're seeing in terms of if they have staffing issues?
Well, staffing kind of gets broken down into two halves. We have the DVMs, which are a very special group, and they've been a huge focus for the last couple of years. That market is getting a little bit easier, but it's still not
Yeah.
easy. And so when we work with clients a lot, we talk about having a very multi-pronged approach. So it's good to have an ad out there and Indeed, AVMA, and a couple other places. But we also look for a lot more unique ways to approach things. And we're doing it, things like going to the schools and working with them is the next obvious one. But then who do we know? Looking at contacts that we have through the industry, who do we know at different practices around the area that a technician that works with us who used to work with a doctor over at a different practice who knows them and they have a good relationship with them, who might be interested in looking. So we start looking at the networking piece of it. There's local VMAs in places that we can go and be around a whole bunch of other DVMs. And using those types of conferences or meetups to meet people as well is good. Doing a lot of externship and allowing future doctors to come through your practice helps build that pipeline. And so we're always looking at doing 5 or 6 things at once just to kind of make sure we can get enough options out there that we can find DVMs that are really ready to make a switch.
You working with, so I mean, when you're using we, the practices that you're working with, you're guiding them. So these issues come up. You're saying, hey, there's solutions here. Let's work all these solutions that you just explained, and let's see, this has worked, and let's you chase down everything so you have options in front of you.
Yeah, I think that's one of the bigger things today is if a lot of people have the one go-to way that just everyone else is using. And I think the thing we try to bring to the table is five other ways that are a little less conventional. We do that when we write ads. We were very big on the way we write ads, trying to attract people. We don't want to write the same ad that the next 50 practices some candidate's going to look at is going to read there. We really focus on culture and selling the personality of the practice and leading with that, not what we need from the candidates, but who we are. And we're looking for the people who resonate with that and say, that's the type of practice I want to walk in and look at every day. And so we approach it from that side of it. And then we, again, try to open as many non-conventional ways to really round out how we can locate clients or even new clients, stuff like that, or other DVMs in order to be able to try to get a little bit of a leg up on some of the practices.
Yeah, you mentioned, the word that jumps out at me. I know it gets used real loosely as culture, right? And I had just had some notes, like as you and I both seen, you touched on it, that the independent practices and versus corporate pressure. And you work mainly with independent practices, correct?
Yeah, that's very
Right. So, what realities do independents need to accept? Advantages they still have, and where are they most vulnerable? Some of the things that I jotted down in anticipation of us talking, and I know a lot of it from the clients that we talk with is culture. The independent practices just have a different culture. And I'm not throwing shade on corporate practices, but it's just different, and depending on what you're looking for.
Yeah, I definitely think there's some advantages private practices have. I think they felt the pinch several years ago when corporations were paying astronomical amounts in order to get staff.
Yeah.
That's kind of drifted away lately, which has evened up the playing field a little bit. We have corporations, there's two corporations that I know that closed their doors this year. I think there's an opportunity in some of the downsizing I'm seeing around some of the corporations. And again, I wish them luck as
Right.
well. We're all trying to same clients and patients, but if they're starting to have some loss of staff, there's opportunities for us to be able to help out with that piece of culture and kind of bring in where we can be different, we can be ourselves. And I know that a lot of the corporations will focus on keeping practices feeling independent and feeling like their own selves. But I think every owner has such a unique personality that they bring and infuse into their practice. And they build a team around them that has their own unique special culture. That if we can really live that and lean into it, I think that that resonates with people a lot more these days.
Yeah, and I guess it goes back to controlling the chaos. That's what's inside the floor. No, within, behind the door, you want to control the chaos, and that's just not dealing with the people and your staff or the clients. Talk to me a little about the financials and what you see, how you coach your clients in terms of the financial intelligence and how does how to maintain good financial intelligence, and then what's the benefit for doing it long term?
Okay. On the financial side, that's an area that I think a lot of the smaller independent practices I work with are struggling with and trying to figure it out. One of the cool things that we can bring to the table is a little bit of perspective of what's going on with the industry and what those norms are. So a lot of owners will look at a P&L that goes on for 2 or 3 pages and say, I don't know what
Right,
to look at or I don't know what
right.
to change. So usually one of the first steps we do is we say, let's just break it down into a couple of big buckets and tell you where those should be. So if you look at just the wages for your DVM, that usually comes in around 18% of the industry. If you look at the staff wages, just the staff's wages, no DVMs, no taxes, no benefits, that's usually around 20 to 22%. If you look at your cost of goods, that's usually around 20% to kind of start off in there. And if you look at all the other expenses together, that's around 20%. And if you hit all those 20%, so 420s there, it leaves you about 20% for profit. A lot of the practices we walk into are maybe 5 or 10% or 15%. And usually, if we just look at those four big buckets, we can quickly identify what's out of alignment here. And so if you're saying, oh, yeah, all my other expenses are right there at 20%, our DVM wages are at 15%, our staff are at 18%, we're great there, and our cost of goods are 30%. That's not an unusual thing for me to see, and that comes down to one of 5 or 10 different things we can work on, from pricing to being able to track inventory, to looking at how we're doing that, and just making sure we can get a good solid inventory pricing and tracking process in place. But it starts with just breaking it down into areas to start getting something more bite-sized that we can actually go after versus just we have X amount of revenue, we have X amount of profit. I don't know what to do about it. I think they need to be able to see it in ways that they can feel they can actually take action. And I usually start with those 4 to 5 areas just to get an idea of where we're having some problems or opportunities.
Yeah, you think about a lot of our clients are that come to us like, oh, I think I want to sell my practice, right?
Yeah.
But their finances, for lack of a better term, they're a bit of a mess. And the first time, like, who's your bookkeeper? Who's your accountant? Oh, it's a family friend or somebody like this. And yeah, you may think you're saving some money, I think, and up front, but on the back end, it becomes a problem. We see all the time. I'm always telling clients, you want to run your business, and if you agree with me, like you're going to sell it in 6 months. That's how you should be operating your business, and based on all the things that you're talking about, you at any given time you can print out, a financial report and be able to give it to someone and look at it and say, at least, or even for you as the owner, understand how your practice is doing and really understand those numbers. Um, I think it's going to be a bet. No, it's obviously it's a huge benefit for not only the owner, but the employees and everybody else who's going to benefit from that. Um, I know we touched on at the outset. I mentioned you moderate VMG, VSG groups. I know from our experience, our clients who are VMG members, um, it's just a different level of playing field in terms of the things that you and I are talking about. They're sitting down with their colleagues over a 2 or 3 day period on semi-annually and going over these issues. It's almost like, okay, I know I got to be prepared because when I'm going in that meeting, we're going to be talking about these issues. It's a um, different approach and a different level of, I think, business owner for those who are members about that. So tell me a little bit about your experience, how you got involved in that, and what you typically do.
Yeah. So, and let me first just agree with you with that. I think one of the bigger things that really benefits owners are being around other owners and being able just to talk about what is normal and how do you do it because they're all left in a situation or just trying to figure it out on their own. And I mean, they have to make it up. They have to guess at things. The ability to see, these are my numbers. What is everyone else's numbers with that? Or this is a problem I'm facing. How is everyone else solving it? That camaraderie is huge. It's a big, big benefit. Probably one of the best parts of BMG. To go to how I got involved with them, the first practice I talked about, she was a BMG member. And so
You had it
6 months
so
later,
easy. Oh my God, you're like a
yeah, no,
softball. Come
the easiest
on,
job I've
zero
ever had.
struggle.
So her numbers started going up. They review all their numbers like you talked about. And all of a sudden, everyone around the table said, what's going on with your numbers? What did you change? And he said, well, I met Jen. And so that's how I got introduced to the group. They brought me in to speak. They brought me back to speak about room flow and efficiency was the first one. And we started talking about finances and some other stuff. And then they asked me if I would continue to come back every meeting, help them run good meetings, run tight meetings. I'm big on processes and
Yeah,
getting things done and organized. And so we started doing that. And it's been so amazing to watch those groups grow and just the bonds that they build with each other and the ability to share that knowledge and kind of have everyone grow together has been phenomenal to watch. And at this point, I have 6 different groups I work with, and they're all very much like that, where they're just huge friends and they collaborate on a lot of different things to get some good value out of that time.
yeah. It's like your own private board of directors because you're all sitting there, and the advice, whether you as a facilitator or whatever guests that you have come in, they can all share that information. Hey, what's working in your practice? What's working in mine? I guess you and I. I mean, I've drank the Kool Aid. I know the ones that I've seen and the clients we have. They do a great job. What if any misconceptions that you hear about or you talk with others about who are not in these types of groups, these peer groups in their profession? Do you hear anything why someone would say, oh, I don't want to be a part of that, or that's not for me?
Yeah, there's 2 big misconceptions I think that come up. Number one is a lot of them, like when they look at VMG, and it's probably because of other groups out there, they see this as just a buying group. It's just a way for me to get
Hmm.
discount. And they miss part of
Yeah.
what the benefit is. Buying groups are good, but this ability to have that board of directors, as you mentioned earlier, is where all the value's at. And I think the biggest other misconception is just not understanding that value because they never had it. people get into these groups and they sit there through 1 or 2 meetings, and you start seeing them opening up and blossoming and sharing problems, and then they go, "This is something I never knew I needed to this degree." And so just not knowing that benefit of having 12, 20 other people around the table that are in the same boat as you to talk about problems every 6 months is phenomenal. And in between these meetings, these guys are talking Slack every
Right.
day about what's going on in the and that is such a cool thing that until you have it, you don't know what you're missing.
Yeah. I think one of I've attended all different types of conferences, meetings, and I think one of the most successful, obviously going to those, or it's a great experience. Um, I think one of the best meetings I've ever attended years ago when I first got into the industry. We used to host meetings with other professionals, and we almost did like a speed dating, where you had all the owners at different tables, kind of like you have it almost at a VMG, and they're listening. And one owner asks a question. Oh yeah, that's going on in my practice too. The other owner asks a question, and you all benefit from the information that's being provided for to one particular practice owner, saying, "Oh, that's the same issue I'm having," and you really can solve, what, and you're doing it on an annual basis. So it's
Yeah.
almost like you got to stay on your game because you're going back. You know, so yeah, it's great. I'm glad it's grown so much and you've had such success with it. I just think that makes the industry as a whole so much better to have these successful practice owners there, because I also think they can help transition, to others, associates that they can train in their practices and saying, hey, this is what's worked for me. Um, we did a transaction recently where we had a client. She bought 49% into the practice. It's a BMG practice, and there was just so much gratitude she had to the owner in terms of how he took her under his wing, and not only from the the medicine side of it, from the business side of it, and continuing to grow and learn, so you can almost pass the torch in that practice. That's obvious. It was a very successful practice to begin with.
Yeah. One of the things I like about VMG, and you kind of touched on it there too. First of all, they really like independent
Mm-hmm.
ownership. They are independent owners. They like to, wherever they can, pass it on to other associates who want to become independent owners. But they also have a really a growth mindset. So they come to these meetings and they learn and they grow and they try to get better all the time. And they bring that mentorship piece back to associates. And they really want to teach
Yeah.
those people in their practice and help grow them and help them become better at their jobs and understanding business.
It kind of ties into what we're talking about. The growth mindset, mentorship. You can't do though. You can't lean into those types of things. If you don't have your house in order, which is why bringing on somebody like yourself to kind of get organized. Operationally, personnel, financially, checking all the. It's certainly doable. Um, for our listeners who are trying to improve in their own practices, they don't have a VMG, they don't have somebody like you. What should every owner do? Within the next 30 days, like an initial change, or maybe like a reflection that they should be doing to kind of at least start the process.
Well, if they want to work on their own, one of the things I would say is a lot of times we have a problem with taking on too many
Mm,
projects and the lack of that being able to follow through on it. Because we get excited about something, we launch it in a staff meeting, and 2 days later we get excited about something else, we go to launch that, and none of them really
yeah.
stick. So one of the first things I would say that any owners should do, and it's a little boring, but it's just the right approach. Just pick one thing and do it all the way through. Make sure that you don't just design it and roll it out in a staff meeting. Make sure you follow up on it a couple days later and follow up with the next staff meeting, and make sure that you're still doing it to the level you want it to a month later. If you can do one of those things a month, that you just can follow through that month and implement it and make sure it sticks, and do 12 of those a year, you'll be far ahead of most other people that I end up working with. And that's something you can do right in your own practice by yourself.
I think you're looking at my notes, because one of the questions I want to ask you is like, what's one habit you would make mandatory? That's it. Pick one thing. It's funny. We were in a team meeting here earlier, my firm, and we're meeting with our business development folks and talking about, and how exactly what you're talking about. Oh, we could do this, we could do that. I'm like, listen, that's great. I think we could, but let's just do one thing. Let's become an expert at this one thing. Then we can pivot and do something else. So that's it's great advice. Similar to that in terms of picking one thing. I guess what mistake is costing practices the most money? Is there just one thing that's doing that, or is there a multitude of things you've seen in your experience?
There's two things I would probably focus on with practices right off the bat. Number one is I think a lot of practices have no idea how to price what they do. And so, intro to the pricing, a lot of times when we work with practices, they might be able to do some basic things like exams and some services. But the further you get from those front lines, and you get into things like X-rays and some of the higher end surgeries, you don't have a great idea about how to price that stuff. And a lot of times, veterinarians are very kind people, and they're leaving a lot of opportunity on the table. And I think that that sometimes hurts some of the profitability. And they'll work really hard and do a ton of effort, but they don't get paid for it appropriately. So that's one thing I would say is just review your pricing, check with somebody else, have somebody come in and do it. Make sure that all the work you're doing, you're getting paid for it
Yeah.
appropriately. Number two, and the other big one, is start being proactive about keeping your staff. I think we just go in there and we work a lot of times, and the staff show up and they work with us, and then we go home. But I think we start seeing turnover and we're not getting engagement. We get surprised when people leave. I think there's so many opportunities just to do a simple thing, go out with every staff member once every 3 to 6 months and take them to lunch and talk to them. What are you trying to accomplish here? How can we help you? What's going on? What problems do you see? How would you fix it? What can I do to support you? A bunch of little things like that just to kind of work with them outside of just the day to day of seeing patients. And I think that helps engage them a lot and helps keep staff longer. And a lot of times you'll find some really cool ideas that they see that you might not have.
It's so basic. Communicate, communicate, communicate. Um,
Yep.
your staff is probably the most important thing in your practice. Um, it translates in everything. I know. I love that advice. And whether you're in veterinary medicine or you're making widgets, it's great advice. It transcends over all industries. I love it. Um, just kind of one other question I want to ask you before we wrap up. If a practice owner is listening right now and it feels overwhelmed, what would you say to them? Like, where can listeners learn more about your work or connect with you?
Yeah. Well, it's very easy to reach out to us. You can reach out to our website and you can email me directly. But our website is CB for Coppens Business and then hyphen strategies. So cb-strategies.com. My email address is jen@cbstrategies.com. You can email us, and we're always there trying to help out with people. We don't have any huge contracts to get people into. If you want to just call us and talk to us and see if there's a possible fit, we'll always do that. We don't charge for that. Just we want to see if we can help some people, and if it makes sense, we're there to help you as much as you need or as little as you need. But I think one of the things I would always encourage people to do is don't be afraid of just making that first phone
Yeah.
call. Just see what opportunities are there. And again, it doesn't hurt you at all to make that call, and you might learn some really cool things. Even if we don't ever work together, I'll share every advice I can over that hour what we
Yeah,
chat.
love it. Yeah, I feel the same way. Jen, thank you so much for joining me today. Really appreciate your time and your insight. Um, have a happy holiday, and look forward to working with you in the future. But I really appreciate you joining me today.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
And then to our listeners, thank you for joining us for another episode of Just Vetting. We'll see you next time.